Hello, I'm the Dark Master, and welcome back to my video game reviews. In today's review, we shall be continuing my coverage of the Kirby series with Dededes Drum Dash Deluxe, or as it's known in the Japanese original release, King Dededes Dedede Drumming Z. Yeah, that is a reference to Dragon Ball Z, in case you were curious. This game was the second of two games made for the Nintendo 3DS eShop that were based off sub-games from Kirby's Triple Deluxe, which I've already reviewed before, so I highly recommend you check that out, as it serves as a good introduction to what we shall be talking about today. Does this game manage to still stand up as its own thing, or does it deserve to be tossed into the pile of forgettable spin-offs that the gaming industry is plagued by? Well, let us find out, and start as we always do with the developmental history of this game. Alright, so much like Kirby's Fighters Deluxe, it started life as a sub-game, with the team led by Shikina Kumazaki thought that had merit worthy of being the focus of its own game. And really, we don't sadly know much about its development, or really anything that might have been cut, and it seems to have gone rather smoothly. Other people that contributed to this game include Yuki Endo as lead level designer, Yumi Toda as design director, Tetsuya Kamiyama as the level design supporter, Hirokazu Ando as the main sound guy, and Satoru Iwata as executive producers. In the end, it would be released on July 23rd, 2014 in Japan, then on August 29th, 2014 in North America, September 24th, 2014 in South Korea, and lastly in February 13th, 2015 in both the EU and Australia. In the end, it didn't really sell well, with less than 1 million copies sold, and overall had a pretty middling critical reception. But was this deserved? Well, let's find out as we start the review of the game proper with the story that this game has. Alright, I have to admit that's what I would say if this game even had a story. Yep, this game doesn't have it, nor even any lore that I could talk about like I did with the last game I reviewed. To be fair, this game doesn't need one, as it is a rhythm game, but I still think the complete lack of one is a bit of a shame. And with that being said, let's not waste any more time and get right into arguably the most important aspect of any game, the gameplay. Alright, so as I briefly mentioned before, Dededes Drum Dash Deluxe's gameplay is essentially the same as in the sub-game from Kirby's Triple Deluxe. The left/right arrows see Dedede go forwards and back. Pressing A upon landing on a drum will have Dedede bounce significantly higher. There are 3 levels: a normal jump where you stay on the bottom screen while the high jump and a super jump go to the top screen. If you press the A button while in the air, you play a cymbal, which if you do at the right time at the midpoint between jumps, you do a backbeat. That gets you points. Speaking of points, you got several items/objects you can interact with. Most of these are returning from regular drum dash, including regular drums in two size variants, fragile drums that break, winged drums that move back and forth or in and out of the background, clouds that obscure your vision for a bit. Last of the returning items are the score points, so there are called musical coins in this game. There are three variants that have different colors and give different points. Gold coins give 500 points, silver coins give 200, and copper coins give 50. Going to new items/objects, there are number coins which must be collected in the right order. You get 100 per one coin, but the last one gives 800 points if you collected them in the correct order. New obstacles include these Gordo-like bumpers, gongs that if you hit by performing a backbeat near them, summon more coins. There are these Mario Bros. Spiky bar type pencils that shoot up at you, propeller drums which move along a particular track, allowing Dedede to cross bigger gaps than would be possible otherwise. There's recovery rings not seen since Kirby Mass Attack, which I've reviewed in the past. It heals your health, but you want to avoid getting hit in the first place, so you really shouldn't waste time trying to use these. Spiked drums will flip over rapidly unless the player is bouncing on them, and spike hoops will hurt the king unless he goes through them correctly. On occasion, parts of the stage are also obscured by banners held by these douchebag enemies, which we'll discuss later, or in the extra version of Stage 7, it's done by Magalore, that twat. Speaking of, there are way more stages here than in the original subgame. 7, in fact, each with distinct music and graphics we shall talk about in a little bit. In addition, there are harder versions, EX versions you could say, of each, with altered drum positions and more obstacles/enemies, leading to a harder experience. Also, if you get hit, you lose 100 points, or if you fall into a pit, you just lose the stage. There are also these extra rewards you can get by doing various tasks like collecting every musical coin in the stage, beating it with 30 seconds or more, taking no damage, or hitting each backbeat. We'll return to this later in the completion requirements, but let's just say they add further replayability. Overall, I would say the gameplay is a solid evolution of the basic gameplay seen in the original subgame, though unless you are a heavy rhythm gamer, you might not appreciate all these subtle improvements. As someone who's not a big rhythm game fan, I will say that I think it's fine, but doesn't have as much enjoyment in terms of the basic single player gameplay as that of some other Kirby games. But now let us discuss the presentation, starting with the most obvious of these two, the graphics. So this game uses the design ethos introduced in Return to Dreamland, which I've reviewed before if you'd like to learn more about my favorite Kirby game. And the basic redesigns used here are pretty solid. Each level has its own vibe. Floral Fields is a bright, chipper pink and indicative of the easy challenge. Must Dash is a fairly well done greens level of this game. Reflective Laughter has a beautiful autumn color palette that really makes you feel at home. Bouncy Boss Battle has a oceanic blue theme. City has a beautiful sunset aesthetic with various pastel colors. Boarding the Halberd has a really amazing nighttime vibe. And lastly, Crowned has a very dynamic inverted color scheme that reminds me of Another Dimension. I also liked the little cameos of Kirby and the random keychains that would show up in the background of some of these stages. There are also these unlockable masks, but we'll talk about those later. Overall, the game's graphics are solid, if not particularly groundbreaking or new. With that, let's go on to the second half of the presentation and arguably the main concern of this particular spin-off, that being the music, and see how good it is. Alright, so all the music of this game is returning, but that's not bad, as it sounds amazing, and frankly, the series has a lot of good music. The title slash menu music is a really soft, jazzy version of Dededes' theme, and it's great, sounding like you hear it in some sort of cafe. Floral Field's theme comes from Deluxe, and this rendition is a bit slower and kind of reminds me of country music, so I really enjoyed its usage. The next theme, Mustache, has a really chipper tone due to the mild tempo and usage of triangle, plus horn instruments. Level 3, Reflected Laughter from Triple Deluxe, does sound like a haunted circus that really kind of freaks one out. The Bouncing Boss Battle theme also comes from the same game and is good, but a bit slower. I actually appreciate that though. City uses the theme of the same name from Kirby Air Ride, and it sounds really grand. Just amazing. Level 6 sees us hear the Boarding Halberd theme from Kirby Superstar, which I've reviewed before if you'd like to learn more. And I think it really stands out as it's not a recent music track and sounds honestly better slower than the original in some ways. The last level is a remix of Crowned, the final boss theme from Return to Dreamland, and buddy, I love that music, even in this variant that uses slide whistles and comes off as the person playing it is drunk. That track is amazing no matter what variant is used. However, it gets, unlike the other tracks, a remix in the EX version of the stage, which is techno and even better. I also thought that the, credits music of this game was really excellent. Overall, while I'll admit it, it is very limited, this game's OST is just really good. Not only are they great reimaginings of old tracks, they work well with the gameplay and are easy to keep pace with. Now let us discuss the game's enemies, for which, while there's not a lot, there's more than the original sub-game, so there's still something to talk about. Alright, so starting with the enemies that return from the original sub-game, Bouncy, Scarfy, Gordo, Sordori, and Soror all function like they did last time. Bronto Burt also returns and functions like last time, but now can also on occasion carry those annoying banners that block your view of where to jump. So that can be a little tedious. There are, technically speaking, no new enemies since they're all returning ones, but some are new compared to the original sub-game. There's the very creepy clown acrobat that shows up and can be a bit annoying as it'll bounce on drums and can hover temporarily in the sky. Waddledees also show up and can bounce, but they can't hover, so are easier to dodge. There's Como the spider, who will hang down at Curse Ring, which can be broken by passing over it, making it the only enemy you can beat without taking damage. Honestly pathetic. Lastly is Beetly, which will fly between planes and occasionally try to swipe at the king. As you can tell, there's not much to say about these guys. There's no mini-bosses or bosses, which is a shame, and I know some will say it's a rhythm game and that they don't really usually have bosses, but I'd counter by saying that the Kirby series has regularly put bosses in games that would normally not have them, like with pinball or golf. They could have done more here, is what I'm saying, but without further ado, let us move on to the final part of this video, the completion requirements and my final thoughts. So, in terms of completion requirements, this game doesn't really have an official 100% completion, tracking, much like that of Kirby's Fighter Deluxe, but there is an unofficial one. For you see, there are 14 platinum trophies for each of the levels and their secret EX variants. Now, to do this, you have to play the level basically perfectly. While not impossible, it is very, very tedious, especially getting the backbeat perfect bonus, which is something you will need, and man, that is really annoying. But I assure you that if you are better at rhythm games than I am, I imagine it's not that hard. There are also these collectible masks that I referred to earlier. You unlock these basically the same way you unlock these, you know, trophies. That being the masked DDD mask you get from clearing all normal stages. There's a Taranza mask you can get by clearing all normal and secret stages. There's also masks of Kirby, Waddle and Meta Knight that you can get if you have Street Pass data for Kirby Triple Deluxe. As you can tell, they're not really needed, but they're, nice little bragging rights. After doing all of this, you get two trophies, one for the regular stages and one for the EX stages. And these can, depending on your final score, either be bronze, silver, gold, and lastly, slash most relevant for this, platinum. Get both and all medals in platinum, and you will have DDD hold two platinum trophies in his hands. Is it worth it? Not really. Look, I'm a stubborn person when it comes to 100% completing stuff, and even I struggle. It's very tedious and probably the worst Kirby game to 100% complete. Just don't bother. I don't think you'll enjoy it any more than just playing a regular playthrough. But if you are a Kirby fanatic or just really like the game, then I guess trying to 100% complete it could be worth it just to extract the most fun from it. As for my final thoughts, well, this game has really great presentation and fun and simple gameplay, but is completely lacking in terms of story depth or rewarding completionist experiences. I would say that it's worth trying out at least once, especially if you're a Kirby fanatic or just a general game fan, since it's a solid, if a bit short, spin-off. However, here we come to the greatest problem with this game, for it has never been re-released outside of the Nintendo 3DS eShop, which is now long dead. And unlike Kirby Fighters Deluxe, there's never been any further revisit to this sort of gameplay style, so there's really no way to get a good try at it. Anyway, legally speaking, of course, no doubt there are certain websites that you can get if you're a sort of nautical thief or whatever. But really, I don't think it's worth the effort, even less so than Kirby Fighters Deluxe, except if you're like a really curious, really dedicated Kirby fan. Overall, it's a solid, if forgettable spinoff, but don't feel bad if you missed it. Anyway, I'm the Dark Master. If you liked this video, you liked it, but if you loved it, consider subscribing and sharing it around. Join me next time when we will continue reviewing various Kirby games, and have a wonderful day.